In the previous class, we discussed the logos approach, where people try logic and reason to convince you of their ideas. In such cases, you should expect them to present you with valid arguments. So, what is an argument? In logic, an argument is a demonstration of evidence of a statement. So, evidence is a big part of it. Also, an argument encapsulates all the part that attest to its truth. It is independent of who speaks it, and it contains all the parts necessary to be assessed by the listener. If we break an argument down, we will find two parts: the evidence or premise, which supports the acceptance of the other part, the conclusion. Now, in an argument, you can have as many pieces of evidence as you need, but you can only have one conclusion. Consider this argument: ships are made of wood, wood floats, therefore ships float. As you see, you have two pieces of evidence: ships are made of wood and wood floats, but based on this evidence, we present a single conclusion: ships float. Unfortunately, not all arguments are this clear. Most arguments we encounter are complex, and breaking them down is not easy. Consider this: I have trained at my local gym 3 days a week since January 2015. Since last year, it takes me 1 hour to work out. So tomorrow when I work out, it will take me an hour to finish my workout. Break this argument down and you'll find three premises. I have trained at my local gym 3 days a week since January 2015. Since last year, it takes me 1 hour to work out. And tomorrow I will work out. And this is the conclusion: it will take me an hour to finish my workout. You will get better at quickly breaking down arguments with more training and experience. But a good practice for spotting conclusions is to look for words like so, thus, and therefore, while words that indicate premises are words like since and because. The two types of arguments you will encounter are deductive and inductive arguments. In deductive arguments, the truth of the conclusion is the logical consequence of the truth of the premise. In other words, if all the premises are true and the argument is valid, it makes the argument sound, which means the conclusion must be true. And your position is that you must accept it, even if that entails you changing your mind. And that's key, because people who never change their minds are people who never learned anything. So in summary, deductive arguments guarantee that the conclusion is true if the premise is true and the argument is valid. Inductive arguments, on the other hand, only predict conclusions to be true to a certain degree, which means if the premises are true, then the conclusion is likely to be true. And if the conclusion is very likely to be true based on the premises presented, then we call the argument strong. To show the difference between deductive and inductive arguments, consider this example. All cars are vehicles. John owns a car, therefore John owns a vehicle. This is a valid deductive argument, and because the first premise is factually correct, cars are vehicles, and so if John does actually own a car, then it is a guarantee that John owns a vehicle. Because again, with valid deductive arguments, if the premises are true, then the conclusion must be true. Now consider this example. Most vehicles are cars. John owns a vehicle, therefore John owns a car. Now, there are many types of vehicles, but cars are the most prevalent type, so this premise is true. And say John does in fact own a vehicle, so this premise is also true. Does this, however, guarantee that John owns a car? No. Even if both premises are true, John might turn out to own a truck or motorcycle type vehicle. Still, until we find out, our money should be on him owning a car, because it is the most likely scenario. C, because this argument only predicts that John owns a car, we can say that this is an example of an inductive argument. And also because the likelihood that John owns a car is high, we can say that this is a strong argument. And even if eventually it turns out to be false, it is reasonable at the time to accept this argument as it is presented to us. So in short, when presented with a sound deductive argument or a strong inductive argument, we should accept and change our minds. Otherwise, we should reject these arguments.